All right, world, here we go. I'm live again. You can't get rid of me yet. So you got
Well, who
Michael
wants to
Pellerano.
get rid of you?
I
Let me
don't
just say
know.
this. Like, who is actually saying, Michael, we need to get rid of you, right?
No,
So,
no one actually.
okay,
I mean,
exactly.
but I was live for so many days in a row, and it was always a weird topic and a deep topic, and it got exhausting for a while. And now it's a little bit more random, and I'm enjoying them so much more. I like the
Random
random.
live, deep, exhausting topics. I got it. Okay.
Yes, yes. It's a good thing that me and you only touched the surface on things. So this will be interesting, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So a little introduction. I've known Mitchell for quite a few years now, and we have met in person before I went through my adventure in Arkansas. He is a co-founder in aligning teams with me and the rest of the team. Hey, Alex, how are you? If you don't know Alex, definitely reach out to her, Mitchell. You guys would get along great. Um, so we wanted to have this conversation today because aligning teams, we're creating these events for HR groups within organizations, HR executives, to really get a deeper understanding of the human connection within organizations, right? And that's really the goal, is to, you know, reinvent, reinvigorate, and retain, right? And I look at this great resignation as not the great resignation, it's a cry for help that it's time to reinvent how we work and how we are seen, heard, and valued, and how we hear, see, and value our teams, our employees, our partners, everything in life. And one of the reasons that we're bringing these events together is to do that, is to really look at new ways of doing it. So Mitchell and I are, we always have slight differences to our opinions, right? And anytime I feel way too comfortable in what I'm thinking, I immediately reach out to Mitchell and say, Mitchell, I need your criticisms. Like I need somebody that's going to challenge me, right? Challenge my thought process on where I am at that moment. I never want to be surrounded by yes people in my life. I just don't. It doesn't work for me. Um, and I think, I think that by doing that in life, it opens our mind, our hearts, and our souls to different topics and new topics. So anybody who's watching who wants to be a guest at any point in time, please do. Mitchell is the creator of Credibility Nation. He's done hundreds of interviews with business leaders, innovators, and spoken to them about their credibility, right? And really went, when I met Mitchell, he was just getting started on this journey, and he went all in on this deep dive into credibility and what it really means, and what it means to individuals, what it means to organizations. And I have so much respect for Mitchell. So I'm going to let him do a quick intro, and then we'll get into the topic at hand, which should be entertaining.
Thank you. Well, first, I'm going to comment on what you said, and simply, I'm not critical or combative just because. It's just sometimes, Michael, I like to see the beginning to the end and the process moving through it, and so sometimes you need somebody to question the first, what is the end product where you can get to, um, and knowing where you are today, then question, well, there are many different paths to get there. Why did you choose this one versus another one? Recognizing where we need to get, right? So that's sort of there. So I ended up interviewing. So it's been 500 interviews to actually create this thing. I went on a Napoleon Hill journey. So I interviewed 500 thought leaders to be able to create the book Credibility Nation, to be able to create a membership community. Probably more important is, and I didn't realize I was going on the journey to do this, to give me a life purpose I never had. So the as a book publisher, we still do this today. I've published over 750 books, and I always thought my business model, my purpose was to, have a good life, be happily married, launch a child. Mine's currently 23 and successfully in the world, and and to be able to do enough where you can enjoy life, have good friends. That was my purpose, right? I don't know if that's really a purpose, but that was my purpose. And what ended up coming out of the interviews, 98% of those people I interviewed could not articulate their purpose in 10 words or less. I think I would fall in that category beforehand. What came out of the interview is me recognizing I have a superpower of allowing people to articulate their purpose. And there's a couple ways I do it, but there's a thing called a CPOP. And from the book publisher perspective, my customer point of pain is professionals wanting effective book credibility. 5 words, right? And the when I put on a different hat, potentially some hats associated with aligning teams, but when I put on a different hat, it's businesses that feel invisible. And by the way, there's definitely a correlation between the two, but depending on who you are, that's different. So when I've interviewed the 500 people, now 616, because I still continue to do these interviews because there's nothing more powerful than being able to talk to somebody and potentially for the first time in their lives, being able to not just recognize, but also to articulate their purpose in such a short time frame. The next step after that is then aligning themselves with that purpose. I like the name Aligning Teams because that's a piece of what I do. Mm-hmm. And so if 98% of thought leaders cannot articulate their purpose in 10 words or less, it means it's something systemic, something endemic in the world today. It's how we're taught, and we're taught wrong, and we're taught to do things with cookie cutter marketing approaches. And so the bigger purpose for me is to recognize that if we've been taught wrong about articulating our purpose and not wearing on our sleeve, what else credibly have we been taught wrong? So I now have the updated definition of credibility. It's the quality in which you are trusted, known, and liked. There are 10 skills associated with that credibility. And what's interesting is my focus is to help people understand what is credible, how do you act credibly, how do you do things appropriately, and at the end of the day, my purpose is to now tip the scale between those in the world that are credible and those that are dubious.
And it's interesting, right? Because when I first met you, I knew you as a publisher, right? And by the way, Alexandra said that she needed to verbalize her purpose, which is the reason I left the comment up. So I'll make sure that I connect with you if Alexandra doesn't reach out to you. It's funny because when I met you, you were a book publisher, right? That was your primary objective. Well, networking and everything else that you do, because you do many different things under that umbrella. But you were also looking to start this journey, right? And you were just getting started. Like, I think the first time we met, you were just thinking about it. And the second time you were about 50, 60 interviews in, if I remember correctly.
That sounds about right. So you actually... That's kind of cool because I go back and look at those days and it was such a different me, right? So, by the way, can I say something? So this is pre-COVID. So Michael and I were connected on LinkedIn, and I had a trip planned to his neck of the woods, so imagine you have a first level connection with somebody who you've not really ever talked to, and I get a message in my box that says, Mitchell, have you rented a car yet for when you're coming out here? Because if you haven't rented the car, don't rent the car. I will be your chauffeur. So I had to talk to this guy first. I decided I liked him. I said yes. And what a amazingly cool way to both capture my attention and then to be of service. We had great conversations while you were now you weren't really driving me around. We were just driving together and talking, right?
Yeah, and we went to many things. Like the first one, we went to that marketing event, right? The networking event before you were going on a cruise, I think the next day. And we met a couple different people also, and it was really interesting, right? It was really it was a very interesting experience, right? And we both got to see each other at what we do best, right?
Yeah.
Me, it's kind of sit in the corner, observe the room, catch up on character, pick up on things that I always pick up on, usually the unspoken things, right? And then you going deep in and really coming out with the cream of the crop in a way, like people that are there with the right intent, people that really want to do things the right way, and people that want to build things in the right way. And looking back at it, where I was then, which was a completely different human on the surface, because that's before I had my kids, I had no access to them. I was just a mess, right? In many, many ways. But it really was the beginning of something, right? And it really was a spark for me, and it woke something up. And then I think it was about 6 months to a year later that you came back out and you had a round of meetings to do, and I just went to them all with you.
It was so much fun, right?
And
So
then
you
we
got
had
to
a-
meet
and
you
then we
got
had
to
to
meet
meet
the
up in
buddies that
Miami.
had lined up, right?
And then we had to meet up in Miami. We drove around University of Miami, which as a Florida State fan is not really fun for me, but we did it.
Hey, I'm an alum. We had to do it, so thank
Right,
you.
right. It's okay. Then we
I
went
know
to
he was
another-
kicking. He was kicking and screaming
A little bit. Yeah.
as I'm ogling places I went to school at. Yeah.
Yes, but the food was worth it, right? Because the
Oh yeah. Oh my
that-
God. We
oh,
found
that
a
place.
local Cuban restaurant.
yes,
I think it was we were somebody made a recommendation based on the
Mhm.
event I was at. It was a hole in the wall, and it was. Oh yeah, thank you. I'm salivating. I'm now hungry. I'm gonna have to go
Yeah.
eat right after we're done
well,
with this.
there you go. Again, food is a big part of what we do at Aligning Teams. So anytime I get to throw food out there, I'm going to, right? And then we went to the meetup, and it was great. It was awesome again, right? And it was just another little adventure, right? And now we've come full circle, and we both have evolved so much since then.
Yeah.
Like night and day. Like we're not even the same people really, but because we both have found our purpose, right? And even when we were on the Aligning Teams call the other day, you were mentioning about, your CPOP, right? And under 10 words. And what's funny is I found mine through this process, right? And I live and die by it every day. Now it's not as honed in as refined because I do like the freedom.
Oh, right. You and I have to. I promised to do that with you. We have choice. We had a different topic we were going to talk about today.
Yes.
So but at some point in time, we could either do it live if you want.
I'm fine with
where
that.
I want to actually help you fine tune your purpose to 10 words or less. So I'll
we'll
do that
we'll
with you,
go on your
Michael.
chat for that.
We could do it live or whatever, but you had a particular purpose for today's session, and I want to make sure we jump on that too. But
Yeah.
this is a fun warm up conversation.
This is so a lot of what we do at Aligning Teams is what we're looking to do is get into organizations, work with them, help them really align on an individual basis while then radiating it outwards to align teams, right? And this topic came up with Mitchell and I at one point where I said, I believe that coaching has to start in the middle of an organization and radiate out from there. And Mitchell has a slightly opposing view where it needs to go from the top down. So we said, why don't we just discuss it live, right? Like, why not? Let's just get out there and talk about it. So I'll let you open the floor as you're the guest, and we'll go from there.
Oh, really? I was going to be excited about letting you drive and start.
Right. Nope. Letting you open the floor.
All right. So I'm going to relate it very personally to start. And I'm going to relate it into, given that we're in a conversation about credibility, I'm going to relate it to what I found personally. So it was somewhere around when I was doing the interviews, it was somewhere around 95% of the way done that I realized what my purpose was. And being able to articulate credibility in such simplistic terms. Matter of fact, there are 2 skills associated with being likable. And if you just follow those 2 skills, people will like you more. It's so amazingly simple. And for those that are credible, once you put the lens on of credibility in these and understanding these 10 skills, it is so simple to actually self-evaluate if it's appropriate of how can you come across better? How could you come across different? Now, there's a couple things about human nature that are interesting, and I'm going to share one before I give you the example of tops down. One is let's assume that in the way I listen and bring people out, that in, let's say 99% of the time, for the first time ever, somebody has been able to articulate their purpose in 10 words or less. We'll just make an assumption that that's the case. Maybe I'm wrong, but with 470 video testimonials saying, oh my God, Mitchell, this is amazing, I think that's a fair assumption. I would say that 90% of those people who for the first time wore their purpose on their sleeve, 90% let it drift away somewhere between the first couple hours and the next 24. Because what they did, Michael, is they would go to one of their advisors or one of their friends or family members and, oh my God, let me tell you what my purpose is. And they would articulate it so cleanly, so succinctly, and they'd get so excited about it. And the person on the other side would say, no, that's not it. It's this. And they weren't strong enough to actually fight back, right? They weren't aligned yet with their purpose, so they let somebody else shift them. And so most of what happens in the world today is we have some dubious marketing ideas and messages, cookie cutter approaches that worked in the past for somebody else that are propagated, right? So here I am. I come up with a simplistic method of being able to just live life more credibly. And what I ended up recognizing, and the TEDx that I did, it's called "We Are Losing Our Humanity," and I'm tired of watching it happen. The TEDx was the 28th most popular TEDx that came out in 2021. And it's very simple. It says, listen, if we just act credibly, we'll be more humane to each other. So finished the research in August, came out in October with the book, this thing, international bestseller in 7 countries, did a summit. There are 800 people who signed up and went to different locations of the summit. And what ended up happening is something that kind of made me mad. It actually pissed me off enough that I actually jumped into a shell. And so, as a matter of fact, it happened to me today again. What happened is, as I'm sharing, my business friends and my friends' friends started all saying the same thing. They started saying, Mitchell, I'm really glad you're doing this. And at first blush, Michael, you go, oh my God, that's pretty cool. I'm feeling really honored. But by the 11th person, and I can't remember if I asked the 11th or 12th, I had them dive deeper. And when they dove deeper, let me finish the sentence. Mitchell, I'm really glad you're doing this. And when you could figure out when and how credibility puts money in my pocket, I'm in. Pissed me off. So sometimes if you give people like the perfect answer and the perfect solution, but somebody is not telling them to do it, they're not going to do it themselves because we've been conditioned that everything needs an immediate ROI, whether it's financial or something else. And so my boss is not asking me to do it, so I'm going to do other things first. This is a nice to have. Living, acting, being credible, that's a nice to have. I just need to be credible enough so I could do business. This is the mindset that apparently human nature has, which, by the way, got me really mad. Not lash out mad, but it had me jump into a shell. And so for about 4 or 5 months, I was trying to figure out, well, how do I do things in such a way where I can easily articulate how people put money in their pocket by being credible? And what I realized is, for me, I need to go after the early adopters who just know it. They just feel it. I mean, we now have ways and ROI components that will show how they do that, but I don't want those people. Now, what that means is that if a company said to their employees, we want you to live, work, be credible, and here's a methodology we're taking, then the employees are going to do it because they're told to do it. But guess what? This is not a marketing cookie cutter approach. This is something that will affect their entire lives. And so that's how I came to the conclusion, as much as I would like it to be a people-led solution. I mean, during the .com days, I helped companies understand what the internet was and how the internet was going to transform the lives and transform the business processes. I did that. That was a large amount came from tops down, but there were definitely some middle approaches and sister company type work that did. But for the construct of completely transforming your life and transforming how you live, work, and play, it's got to be tops down. Otherwise, people don't give it enough attention.
Okay. Okay, so admittedly, I agree with you on smaller companies, right? I agree with you on companies under 50 people, under 75 people, under 100 people, maybe. But there's some point where it disconnects. And there's some point where middle management, whatever that is within an organization, could be supervisor, could be manager, could be even director, right? Depending on the size of an organization. So when I look at this, what I personally believe and what I think makes more sense to me is your culture of your organization is your people. There's no culture without your people, and your people are your culture, right? So if theoretically you're working from the top down, that transition from the top down to reach your culture is a large turnaround time, depending on the size of the organization, how many tiers it has to go down, what layers it has to go through. By the time the new ways get implemented, by the time everybody understands it, people get retrained in it. Like, the bureaucracy in a lot of these organizations is beyond ridiculous, beyond tedious.
By the way, Sean, I should let you talk versus interrupt because you were kind enough to let me talk. Is that would you prefer?
You can go back and forth. I'm fine with that too.
Whatever you want. I'm okay either way.
Go ahead.
All right. So the answer is yes. So I'm going to do the yes and. Yes, I agree with you. If it was 100% tops down has to say this is important and why. How it gets deployed is a trainer model.
And I think yes, right. And I think the real answer is it needs to be both, right? That's my personal opinion. But I also believe it needs to be both at the exact same time.
So tell me about your training model. So how can the person who's running HR for the company if the CEO doesn't want it? How can this is my thought process. My question is simply, CEO goes to HR and says, HR, fix our culture. But the CEO doesn't do anything about it. They're fully delegating to HR. Is that possible?
I think it's possible for leadership development. I think it's possible for culture ambitions. I think it's possible for small culture projects. I think when I really look at this, okay, and I've worked with coaches that are 25,000 a month. I've worked with coaches that are 300 a month. I've worked with coaches across the board, right? And I've seen so many coaching programs and worked with so many, and I've put into practice many. And I don't think that there's a better or worse, right? I think people need to find value in what they're doing, and based on where your income bracket is where you're finding value, right? Because if you're going to spend $1,000 a month on your car, then spending $300 a month for coaching, you're not going to see the value, right? Like, that's just the reality of the world. So when I really look at this, it's about a ripple effect, right? So if you go into HR and you create, and HR comes to our event and experiences it themselves and sees and feels and understands the methodology of many different modalities of one, coaching, but also just shifting of perspectives, right? When HR has that ability to actually see, feel, and understand a different way of doing things, and they go back to their organization, which we're creating follow through by creating the group on your platform, right? And to continue that follow through when they go back to their daily life, and support, and all the facilitators are going to be in there supporting them, answering questions, being there for them. But when you're able to do that, and you go to your executive, right, whichever one it is, they all have budgets, they all have responsibilities, they all have wiggle room, and they all have money that they can put towards projects. And they say, we really, let's say it's a 100-person company. let's say that they wanted to test it out on 10 people, right? Whatever the price range, they come up with a price range. We help them find we help them to find a package that works for them, that helps to meet the needs of the individual people within their culture. Because the minute you impact those individuals, the culture starts radiating and shifting at a different level. And whether it's the CEO or whether it's the janitor, it's been proven that one person with a light about them that has to be a leader without a title, doesn't matter the title, can inspire the whole organization to do a flip. And when you replicate and you multiply that, because you're able to hit a peak group in the middle, it will show across every metric possible.
Yes. So we're actually incredibly, man, I was hoping this would be more confrontational, but we're much more aligned, which is a good thing. So I want to say something, by the way, Kenneth, who's writing in the chat, you may want to read one of those. His wording is just
Kenneth is amazing. We call him KDJ. He's sneaking in through Facebook this time, but he's usually on LinkedIn. He must be at work.
Nice. And then Rebecca, I like that last statement you said. Oh no, you want to highlight at some point in time, highlight Kenneth's first words. Actually, let me just read this because it's so much fun. Michael Paderano, today's conversation is as damn scrumptiously, deliciously, edibly tasty good. Savor the flavor of the awesomeness in you two gents for sharing your delectable thoughts for us today. Like what sort of poetry book did that come out of?
He is a master of words. Kenneth
that's amazing.
Always like that.
And Rebecca, I love your thoughts. So it has to come from both, Michael, and I'm going to say yes. First, let me grab a myth. You said something, and it was so powerful. I wanted to make sure people heard it and that we talked about it. And then I do want to come back to, I now realize what Aligning Teams is doing and why it's important for HR to experience what it can be, to be able to see the light. I'm going to continue on that. So HR needs to see it. They need to go to the events, Michael, that Aligning Teams that we're creating, because they need to have the experience to feel what it will feel like to engage and interact with a set of peers in a way that is so powerful, both professionally and personally.
Yes.
Because what we need to do, we need to take that into every corporation. Corporations can't be comprised of teams. They need to be comprised of community.
Yes.
And the reason why the top, like, you need to do at the bottom, and I do agree. There's a part of me that says, yeah, and this is, Rebecca, this is your thought. It has to be both at the end of the day. However, if the middle is shifted, the top will almost have to change. I'm going to say, in the old days, the egos at the top are so amazingly huge. The answer is no. They're going to want to have it their way. In today's world, the company that's going to survive tomorrow, it can't even be they will change. It has to be they have to change.
Yes.
But that's not the way the world lives today. That's not the way the C-suite. I sit on the board of a public firm. That's not the way the C-suite operates today. And so we're in the midst of this massive transformation. And I think this opportunity to allow one group, one particular function inside the organization, HR, to truly see the power of living and working in sort of a combined space, which is what the event's about. This is what you architected, Michael, in terms of putting together the team. And the team has contributed and everything, but this is where your architecture lies. That's powerful, dude.
It's about the experience, right? Because every part of the event is an experience. The meals are experiences, the workshops are experiences. Being present and going through the different types of coaching environments. And, this is all experience. This is actually, you're not going to sit there and look at a piece of paper and say, oh, this sounds really good. I don't know what it's about. This is going to be, I tried this. I'm going back to my company and I can think of 7 employees that need this. I could think of 4 that need this. I could think of 5 that need this. And once you start valuing your employees, that they are valued, seen, and heard, the retention issue goes out the window.
Yeah.
Because the retention is because people don't feel valued, seen, and heard. The minute you start investing into their best selves, you start getting self-empowered, self-inspired people that are going to invigorate this light within your organization that is going to be contagious, and it's going to innovate, and it's going to shift no matter how large or small your organization is. When you start creating that ripple will transform your organization. And this is a reinvention of work. This is a reinvention of the workplace. We spend too much time at work. We spend too much time with our coworkers not to be seen, valued, and heard.
I am going to tell you what's missing, probably in our flyer and in the homepage of Aligning Teams.
I'm sure it is.
So there's one thing you said. I mean, there are many things you said, but let me summarize what you said in one word, right? Because you sell a lot of stuff, and some of it seems, you don't mean it marketing, but some of it's cookie cutter marketing approach.
Right.
You said one thing that was super cool. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Experience.
Yeah.
You said it in a particular way, but let me extrapolate. You said, oh, wait, we need the people to come to our event so that they can experience it and take it back to the company. Let me change that. You need to be able to experience what it means to live work where it's combined. You need to be able to create experiences at your company. So you just need to model what you're seeing at the event you're creating. And whether or not it's at the event we do at Aligning Teams, it's that HR needs to step out from behind the scenes and be concerned about doing all the right stuff. And they need to be helping the executive management of companies create experiences.
Yeah.
It's not about the pay rate. I mean, for some people it is, but it's about the experience that drives I don't know what the exact statistics, somebody in the chat could probably say it. The retention rate of those inside the company it's somewhere around 80% based on the manager. That's the experience. That's the piece, Michael, that we need to focus on, that doesn't show up on the homepage in the first fold of Aligning Teams.
Yes. And it's something that will obviously get corrected, or get added or adjusted. Maybe not corrected, but adjusted. And
it's modified. This is just part of the experience, right?
It's an evolution.
Here's the cool part. We're talking about, so think about this. As part of the team of Aligning Teams, I have no problem telling the chief of the company that we need to fix something live in front of other people.
Right.
I'm just saying, what does that demonstrate? I don't mind, and I absolutely will have the integrity to externally show what feels good about my internal integrity. I have the intent and commitment to do the right thing. I know with 100% certainty that Michael is vulnerable enough to hear, and then he could make a decision if he likes it or not. Now, here's the cool part. If he doesn't like the decision, he will either tell me live or will think about it and come back to me. Mm. This is just being a good, credible human, right? That's what we need to do.
And again, I appreciate that, right? Like, I do. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for that and for you. And really, if you really look at even the way our team is done, our team is built, no one has a label. There is no title. We are all co-founders.
We still call you the Big Cheese, though, just to be clear.
I get that. And maybe it was my architecture, right? And that's fine. But I'm only as good as the team I bring together, right? Because you can be the best architect in the world, but if you don't bring the team together and you don't create the vision properly, and what I did in the beginning was I didn't set expectations properly, right? And that created a bottleneck. And then a lot of it got left on my shoulders, and I wasn't living into what we're working on creating. So I had to take a step back, do that transparency, do a self-evaluation, and really retool how I was going about things. So yes, while we're all co-founders, now all I did was add a little tag of what each person's objective and area of focus is within the group. And we still don't have titles. We all still have a vote. We all still have a way to chip in, but now we have a little bit of guidance and a little bit of an understanding of what we expect upon ourselves and what we expect from our team members. And that was the mistake I made in the beginning, right? But we're able to adjust with that because we are transparent, because we are honest and vulnerable, and we live in our integrity and credibility every day, right? We own it. And when we make mistakes, we fix it. And that's it. There's no shame in this game. I mean, this is life. This is a journey for every one of us. Titles don't matter as much as what you're able to inspire from the people around you.
Oh, I want to jump on that.
Go for it.
So just the last word, titles don't matter unless you're able to inspire those around you. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say I agree. And I'm going to say where we've been taught wrong.
You only have one place, Mitchell, that we've been taught wrong?
Oh, many. One of the most important things, if you look at our educational system today, which absolutely is hard, and I'll tell you why. If you look at the way companies are structured today, it all is based on a command and control model that came out of the industrial age. You had Henry Ford on top. Everything else was put into a factory assembly line, and humans were just assembly pieces to screw it's the Popeye. If you want to think about it, think about Popeye's arms and his ability to screw the lug nut into the car, right? So the thing that shocks me the most, Michael, there's a class of people who never want to be a leader, right? They just don't want to ever have that title. They've been taught, hey, I've been taught my entire life I'm a follower, which is, by the way, what the educational system is there are a select few up top who are leaders, everyone else are followers. That's the educational system. That we have to memorize this silly stuff that we now have. We can get access to any information we want in the world in seconds. What we need to be taught is how to be discerning of the information source and what we're hearing, right? But that's a whole different like hour conversation. So what's interesting to me is those people who I've run into beautiful hearts. They're there to serve. They are one of the most important elements of being credible is to be a servant leader. And I run into servant leaders who just are excellent. They excel at what they do. And when I say, you're a servant leader. Now, if they're not Catholic and they haven't heard those words before, they will vehemently disagree with me because they don't want to accept the word leader as a title that they put to their name. Yeah. And so that's something we need to fix. That is something we need to help. You said any one of us who want to do the right thing, we can. Guess what? We become a leader. We become a leader of service to others. However you want to use that brand, that name, you have to do the right thing. And if you do the right thing and you express it appropriately, people will follow.
So I believe
that's the experience we want to deliver.
I believe anyone could be a leader. And I believe that a leader doesn't need a title. And I also believe that anybody has the ability to be a leader. And anybody can bring together and rally the troops and reinvigorate a workspace, an organization, a group, and bring it to fruition based on passion, living into their definitive purpose, and following their passionate path, and living in their truth, transparent truth, blunt, kind candor, as Gary Vee now says, but transparent honesty. Just be truthful, understand that your weaknesses are not weaknesses. It's an opportunity for someone on your team to excel in that space and be a contributor. Own it, because then you're allowing other people to own their stuff. And when everybody starts owning their weaknesses, their strengths fly, their strengths flourish. As a team, everybody's embraced. As a team, everybody is inspired and lifts up, and you feel the passion, the energy, and you can guide a group of misfits, a group of strangers, a group to be this invigorated, passionate group to accomplish any task that needs to get done in this world. And I believe that with everything I am.
So the answer is yes. And I love that. And inside of a corporate wall, that culture needs to be created, emphasized, and reinforced by the behavior of the executive team.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, to me, that's the reinforcement with the behavior by the executive team is why I think tops down it has to happen. Because without that, I mean, you could do it for an autonomous division or an autonomous department where the leader actually has the opportunity to basically say, listen, this is how we're going to run our business. I have a cousin who worked at Oracle, and that Larry Ellison is known to be not a fun boss to work for.
Mm-hmm.
And he sheltered for his department the bullshit
Right.
that was working at Oracle.
Right.
And he created a culture that works. So you could do it at a department level, but it has to be the leader.
And I think the leader can be anyone, which is why I think that you can work it from the middle. Right. And I think it does need to be both, but I also think that it's easier to show results from the middle when it ripples faster and it's more contagious to positive direction.
Ooh. I'm going to now agree with you vehemently and say it has to be both.
Yes.
Because a leader who's echoing the appropriate words that have nobody in the organization that's also driving and leading is not going to be successful.
Well, and here's the thing. I've worked I think since I started working at 16 on the books legally, right? So I think I started at 16. I'm 42 now, so that's 26 years of working. I've worked in, I believe, between 18 and 22 different industries. I've worked for all sorts of different Fortune 500, 1,000 companies in many different roles, right? And when I really look at them, there's a reason that companies are losing employees. There's a reason that people are resigning. And it's because they're not valued, seen, and heard. It's those three things. It's not as much about the salary. People will take less salary for an employer that invests into their well-being, for an employer that wants to see them thrive at whatever makes them passionate. But unfortunately, we live in this fear-mongering world right now where everything is based off fear, one direction or the other. And employees are scared to lose people, so they don't want to encourage them to be passionate, because if they're passionate, they might leave, right? But what they don't understand is if they breed an environment of passion, when they get the right people in the door, those passionate people, for their mission, their credibility, their core statements, their core values as an organization, they will flourish beyond belief. And you're going to see a lot of large companies either drastically decrease in size or disappear in the next 10 years. Because people have options. When you have guys like Gary Vee, with everything they build, right? Tremendous amount of respect for him. His new book was amazing, right?
Oh, by the way, I'm just going to say yes for a second, because the public persona, which was Gary Vee, was someone that I found what he did interesting, but not relatable.
Right.
I listened to 12 and a half. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's amazing.
Oh yeah, he's unbelievable, right? And so with everything that he's built and the money that he's built from nothing, right? From nothing, dirt poor. This is a guy who still records himself garage sailing on Saturdays and Sundays in New
Yeah.
Jersey.
Oh, by the way, I double checked. I was curious because somebody asked that question, and so I Googled it. Apparently, it's estimated that he's worth 160 million.
I think that's way low. Truthfully, I think it's
With
way
it?
low compared. Yeah, based on what he's done over the last 9 months, without a doubt.
Wow.
Between selling the wine company and doing all those other things.
Oh, I should have looked at what date that was posted.
Yeah, because he's always
Bad
has 15,
Mitchell.
20 businesses flying around. So he has everything he's doing is exploding right now because it's just the way he lives. It's the way that he treats people, right? And that says everything. It's the credibility, the integrity, right? And the self-awareness. And he's living it every day. He owns it when he messes up. But what I was going to say is, like, this is a guy who goes garage sailing. This is a guy who knows billionaires and sports owners and all these other things. And he goes garage sailing to show others how they can make extra money on the side and how they could replace that $60,000 a year job working 3 or 4 days a week, but teaching themselves the methods and being able to work a regular job, let's say part-time, and make more money and be happier and live their passion. So why would somebody stay where they're unhappy? Because here's the reality. If a loaf of bread is $600 in 2 years, which at the rate they're printing, there's a chance, then it doesn't matter if you make $250,000 or $5 million a year, you're still paying $600 for the loaf of bread. And you're not getting a raise because it's going to be salary freezes. And all these other expenses are going up too. So at the end of the day, find happiness, because that is the key. Find your happiness. Happiness is a currency. Your energy is a currency. Your truth, living in your passion, is a currency. Because at the end of the day, inspiring people, doing those things, is real currency. Because Napoleon Hill, when he wrote Think and Grow Rich, as the Depression was going on, what was it, 1937, I think he released that. Meanwhile, his best book that I've ever read, which is called Outwitting the Devil, which he wrote in 1938, didn't get released for 70 years because his family was terrified of what would happen. His best work, by far his best work, because the level of depth that you go thinking into that book and the level of depth that you look at your whole life different when you come out of it, it changes everything. You can't hide from yourself anymore because then you know what you are, right? Like this is the thing. Like they always say, once you know, you can't go backwards. That's not true. You could just choose to be ignorant. You could choose to be avoidant. You could choose to go to vices. You could choose to run. It's always about a choice.
I liked your rant. That was a good rant. Other than
I have those from time to time.
Other than the $600 loaf, so that's a different conversation too.
That's about 20 different conversations.
But what I loved is your happiness is a currency.
Yeah.
I'm going to say your happiness is a currency. Your corporate culture is a currency. Your credibility is your currency. And so credibility is not, for me, it's not the, hey, I'm credible, I can do this. Credibility, remember, is that you're trusted to do something, that people actually know you and you're doing it for the right reasons, and that you're likable. And that is a currency. Yeah, I like that a lot.
I think it's all currency, Mitchell. And I think when we start valuing different things over just money, and we start valuing, as Gary Vee always says, when we start valuing, our happiness, when we start valuing our time, when we start valuing our time away from work, and when that becomes more valuable than the time at work, it makes you second guess why you're working there anymore.
Right.
And that's the problem. Because if you're not valued, seen, and heard, it's very likely that you can go flip basketball cards online and make more money than your day job.
Right.
Because now it's all digital.
Here's the cool part. Like, we are so concerned about where the world's going because you've got AI, you've got robotics, you've got COVID. People don't actually want to go in rooms together. And so imagine a company like an IBM, instead of having 500,000 employees, imagine a company like IBM having 500,000 contractors. How does HR in a company like IBM take 500,000 employees, now contractors, and they're not doing it just for financial reasons, but they're doing it? How does HR now have a cohesive currency of culture? That's what aligning teams is about. That's what we're doing. That's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it's about bringing the intangibles and really showing your employees and people that work with you how you value that.
All right, dude, I gotta wrap up.
All right, Mitchell, it was great. I enjoyed it. I think we both agree that it has to be both. And at the end of the day, it spun off into many good conversations, but I think it was a great conversation. And thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for changing my opinion while we were live. Even better.
I know I will.
Let's put experiences on our website and everywhere, because that's it.
Definitely. Without a doubt.
Experiences and currency. Yeah.
Yes. All right, my friend.
All right.
Thanks,
Michael.
All right.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye.